I'm Edie Lush, and I'm here inside the Hub Culture Davos studio. What do you think? Do you like it?
Yeah, it's been wonderful. It's white. The building is white. It's been a beautiful day. A lot of people are skiing on the last day here at Davos.
I know, it's great. So, Dr. Gino, you're an associate professor at Hong Kong Polytechnic University.
Yes.
You did spend some time in California, for which you should be commended.
Oh, thank you.
I want to know about your thoughts on consciousness. We talk a lot at Hub Culture about collective consciousness, but what is consciousness?
Well, that's the big question. What is consciousness? And so my background's actually in electrical engineering and computer science when I was in California. And my in studying that, electrical engineering, we were looking at software and hardware in a computer. And so there's a relationship between software and hardware in a computer. In a similar way, there's a relationship between the mind and the body. So physically, your body is here. Physically, my body is here. And so that's kind of like the hardware. In this conversation, we seem to be somewhere as well, which is kind of like the software. And so if I mention, say, the Golden Gate Bridge, or Go Bears, and you know what I mean, are there certain neurons in my brain that are wired like yours? Or even when I did say Go Bears and you kind of smiled a little bit, that seems to suggest that symbol influences you, or those words influence you in some way. And so what is that relationship? And so that's kind of what we try to research and try to understand. And just like there's a relationship between hardware and software in a computer, there seems to be a relationship between the mind and the body.
So this is interesting, and I want to take this in about 8,000 different directions. One thing that I'm interested in is the power of storytelling, which is what we try to do through the videos here. And what I know and what I've seen through some interviews with some folks at MIT is that a really compelling story actually produces mind meld between two different brains, right? So if I'm telling you this incredibly compelling story and you really are understanding it, not only do our brain patterns match, but actually you will start to anticipate what mine are, so you can predict what I'm going to be saying.
Well, it's worse than that.
Go on, tell me.
Well, just even in our conversation, you know, physically you're here and physically I'm here. All of your past experiences from when you were born to today are somehow encoded in your physiology. All of my past experiences from when I was born to today are encoded in my physiology. Right now we're speaking English, but 我现在讲国语的话，你可能听不懂我在说什么，对不对？
Se habla español?
Oui, sí. Un poquito. So, but the whole point here is we're just shifting dictionaries.
Sí.
And so what's actually happening here is that as I'm speaking, I'm kind of mapping into my understanding, and I'm saying words and these words are then influencing you, and then influencing all of your past experience in relation to those words and ideas, and you're traversing your physiology too. So the main role of language, not just stories, the main role of language is physiological resonance. And so what's actually happening is I'm traversing my embodied knowing, you're traversing your embodied knowing, and we're maintaining eye contact. Now, the interesting thing about this, as you were doing earlier, is if I say something that's not in your embodied knowing, you're going to disconnect from this, and you're going to go into your own referential understanding, which is thought. And does that make sense? And you're going to come back. And so what the main role of language is physiological resonance.
Right.
And so better than that is all of your past experiences, you're female, your genetics are different, your experiences are different. You're entitled to have a different worldview than me.
Right.
I'm entitled to have a different worldview than you. And so as we're speaking, what's this about?
I don't know.
What's going on? You know, if I say something that offends you or pushes you back, how does saying that louder?
Right.
And so how are you using language? And as you're using language, what is it doing to the intersubjective? And so many people are caught. And so I just interrupted you there too. So many people are caught in their perspective, but they're not really paying attention to the space between and paying attention to how things feel as we're engaging. Because of the resonance, it is a physiological resonance. And so if I shift a little right now, I'm talking to you like this, but if I just...
I get guests like that sometimes. Oh God, please don't cry.
And all I'm doing is I'm just shifting my breathing. But because of the resonance, you're going to feel something as well, too.
Right. So how do you build trust? And how do you build trust with language? And given our different physiological experiences, our backgrounds, everything we bring to this conversation. What we know is that the trust in the world and trust between people, especially people like us on social media, has gone down this year. It seems to me that we can't achieve the world we want to by 2030, the end of the Sustainable Development Goals, without some degree of trust. Now, traditionally, we build trust in people. So I trust you as a person because I've built some kind of relationship with you. So how do you use what you know about consciousness and what we're bringing to this conversation to build trust?
I'll throw two answers for that. Number one is trust is there to mitigate between desire and fear. So trust is, hey, I really want to do this, but the fear and the lack of trust is, is something bad going to happen, etc. And so fear is there to actually keep desire in check. And so, hey, do I feel comfortable with this? And then what I'm doing, unfortunately, is I'm projecting that into the story of the symbols, rather than realizing it's my unconscious subconscious projecting into the material world, which is making me feel these emotions and everything. And so so part of it is really looking at the trust. Another part of it is really looking at, what are the underlying emotions motivating the action? Why am I doing this? And what are the narratives behind it? And ultimately, underneath all of the narratives within everybody is the innate joy of being. The right here, right now.
Right.
It's good to be alive experience.
It is.
And compared to being dead right now, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And so if every moment you can realize that and then live from that rather than the fears, needs, and desires driven by the stories. And so in this situation, I'm actually anti-story.
Okay.
How do you get people out of story? And what's left is the innate joy of being. Now, part of the issue with the podcasts and everything is because, hey, I know you make money doing this, and part of me is jealous. I wish I was going around the world talking to people, making money doing this, and traveling the world, etc. And so there's all of this related to the viewer, their worldview, and there's a tension between what are they saying and how much do I believe it. And to be honest, especially with the speakers today, what can you believe these days?
Right, right.
You know who I'm talking about
I
as
do.
well,
We're
too.
about to see Mr. Trump come on stage.
Well, I didn't know. I didn't mention any names. But and then there, too, that's a symbol, right? Have you ever met Trump in person?
Not yet.
So your entire understanding of Trump
is from what I've seen on TV, what I've read, what other people have
and
told
how
me.
he feels and everything. He's become kind of like the Beatles catalog.
Right.
Something in thought, a symbol that influences how people feel. Certain people feel, well, different people feel different depending on whether you wear red shirts or blue shirts, as an example. Well, actually, although that's blurring a little bit these days.
All right.
Wait.
Yeah,
so the other thing about this, too, is we're working with, another thing related to that topic is there's a project called Loving AI, Kindness AI, that's being done at Hanson Robotics in conjunction with a number of research groups and at IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And what they're doing is they're using robots to teach meditation and to have conversations. And what they are finding is that people are actually more engaging with the robots because they know that the robots don't have an agenda and they won't judge them.
True with AI and doctors too.
Yeah.
So if you know you're talking to an AI doctor, you're actually more likely to be much more truthful.
Yeah,
and
so we're finding that, especially when I'm sharing very sensitive things, where I'm really can trigger fear and judgment.
We got to stop there.
All right.
Thank you very much for joining me,
Thanks.
Dr. Gino Yu, and I'm Edie Lush.